right, a few days ago I made a video about Bizzy Bone's first song being Sailing, and that it was in this book, Bizzy by Choice, Bone by Blood, Inside a Bizzy Mind, the official authorized autobiography of Bizzy Bone of Bone Thugs-n-Harmony. Now, I had acquired this book back when we interviewed Frank Nitti because there's a chapter in this book dedicated to him. And this is a book I had always wanted to check out, but there was always like a stigma behind this book, and I don't know why. It's a really good book, and I've enjoyed reading it and it only took me 2 sittings to read it. Now, it's a thick book. It appears fairly thick. Actually, it's not thick. This is like your average size of a book. And let's see how many pages it is. It's about 180 pages. And there's mixed reviews on this, and I'm not sure why. For a Bizzy Bone autobiography, I think this pretty much nailed it in a concise way. And as it is 180 pages, it's misleading because there's a lot of pictures throughout the book. So it's much less than 180 pages. So don't feel like it's a daunting, huge read to do. I was able to read this in 2 sittings. Very short sittings as well. So let's take a look through the pages. I'm just going to go through every page. I'm not going to read it all. There's a little dedication to Capo there. Legend is Born. It's a Bizzy child picture. Got his signature there. This came with the book. I don't think that's a real signature. I bought this off of Amazon. Pictures. Got the table of contents. And yeah, I'll go through the table as we get to those pages. So 7 signs. So the introduction, the birth of a musical genius. In this chapter, Bizzy talks about how he remembers where he was before he was born, how God gave him a choice of a couple of different lives to select, and he selected the life that he has now. Talks about the early days, and then in the beginning. This is also some origins of Bizzy Bone. He remembers coming to the world and having a mission, and that his dad is Jesus and his granddad is God. Chapter 2 is America's Most Wanted, so it tells the story of being kidnapped that most of you guys know. I mean, if anybody's listened to the song Nobody Can Stop Me Now, you pretty much got the story there. And then we have Home Sweet Home. This is kind of talking about the different places he had to live as a child, going through all the trials and tribulations of his family, and as well as the foster homes. And then Feeling the Beat. This is where he talked. This is actually the chapter I made the video about, where he talks about the first song that he heard was Sailing by Christopher Cross, that he was Master Fresh. That was his first rap name. Bass and Treble was the first song he heard, or that he wrote at age 9. And then we got Bone Enterprise. You know, Bone Enterprise is a favorite of ours. And this discusses how, I think he said Kermit used to pay them $50 per song, and they'd have to split it 4 ways, which was $12.50 each. Got some more pictures there. We got the Faces of Death chapter. I'm not sure what differentiates between Bone Enterprise and Faces of Death. I can't remember now. It's been a couple days since I read it, but you could read it. He also talks about the battle with Jay-Z for $30. Briefly, there's not much more than what you've heard in the interviews there. But there's the part about getting $50 per song, $12.50 each. What can you do with $12.50? Grand Theft Auto, Thugs. This chapter is kind of interesting. This chapter kind of touches upon when Wish shot himself in the leg, because Bizzy and Lazy steal Wish's relative's car, and then the police end up chasing him, and then they actually jump out of the car while it's driving, and then they're running through and they're dodging the helicopters and whatnot. Eventually make it. Nobody presses charges against them, and then Wish is about to go to jail, and then Bizzy and Lazy had like these trench coats with these guns in them, and then they found some shells in one of the cars that they stole, and then you could kind of put the picture together. The birth of Bone Thugs-n-Harmony. I'm sure you guys all know that story by now. Actually, you don't know the story. In Bizzy Bone says that Crazy Bone brought the stuff. So, we were always trying to find out when the change from Bone Enterprise to the Bone Thugs-n-Harmony sound happened, and Bizzy says it happened when Crazy Bone returned from jail and he had a new style, and that was going to be their style going forward. Back to Cleveland. I don't remember what's in there. And then the Eazy-E, Friend and Mentor. stories of Easy. And then there's also a lot of stories of Fleshbone as well in here, of the trials and tribulations Fleshbone went through, and some of that stuff, and how how Flesh had a partial scholarship for basketball, and then they were trying to, just like Flesh was trying to get them money to get the Greyhound bus tickets, they were trying to get money to keep Flesh in college. Here's Bizzy at Eazy-E's grave. And the Grammy goes to, there's a picture of Bizzy Bone and his mom. And working with legends. Now, somewhere in here, they talk. Bizzy talks about how Bone was in the 1994 Northridge earthquake. It was a 6.7 mag earthquake. And what's interesting about it was they were like falling asleep watching a gospel channel, and it was like about the end of the world. And then the earthquake happens, and they're like, man, Bizzy's like, is this the end of the world? And Lazy's like, no, it's an earthquake, fool, let's get out of here. And some guy just happens to show up to rescue them, like right when they needed him the most, which is pretty bizarre. Like, that's so Heaven's movie right there. And you also kind of get an idea on why Bone used to rap about the end of the world so much, going through that 6.7 mag earthquake. And in a way, they were kind of lucky that the earthquake happened, because it enabled them to receive money. This is while they were still trying to hunt down Eazy-E, and so they were running out of money. And the earthquake provided, there was like, I guess, government assistance to people that were affected by the earthquake. So that came in the nick of time too. And part of the theme of this book is that God is always carrying you when you need Him. He frequently mentions the footsteps in the sand poem, that God's always carrying you. And there's a major religious and spiritual, but I feel like Bizzy's is more spiritual than religious. His connection to Jesus, his connection to God, it's tremendously profound. That's my favorite part about this book, just hearing Bizzy's mind. And it's a really good title, Inside a Bizzy Mind, because he definitely lets you understand how it's going down. So Bone goes solo. He explains how they all get their solo deals, and how everybody thought they broke up, which is why they recorded Resurrection. And he was excited that Flesh, dropped a lot of songs on that album. But what he said kind of killed the momentum of Resurrection was that's when Flesh went to jail, right as the album kind of dropped. So that killed the momentum of Resurrection. Cool little drawing of Bizzy. An angel named Petra. You guys all know the story of Maury Povich show, and he sang Jesus to Petra. It's a really nice story. And what was nice about the story is that Bizzy talks about how, making her day made his day as well. And being a YouTuber, a lot of times I have a couple of channels. So I have a technology channel where I give people tips on how to fix errors. And it's nice that I helped, shorten people's day of troubleshooting their problems, and that I helped them out. I saved the day for them. So it's always nice to help people out. Yeah, the more you give, the more you receive. So now we hit the part of the book where, by the way, there's a bunch of collage pictures in here. Even though it's like a 7x9 piece of paper, it's kind of hard to really make out some of these collage pictures, but these full color pictures are nice. And a lot of these we've seen, although I've never seen that picture. That's the Bizzy best of collabos. This one, that's the back with the thugs, right? Is that? We got these pics. Pretty neat stuff. Good photography. There's the Bone Collector photograph. So these pics are all in the book for you to enjoy. And I think most of you guys have seen some of these on the internet. It's a pretty cool all white outfit. All right, now this is what I think. This is a selling point. Like, if I was trying to sell you on this book, I think the pink elephant in the room that we always wonder about, we don't normally vocalize it, but what was going on with Bizzy in those dark years, the 2004, a little bit after Thug World Order dropped, when Bizzy went homeless and was wandering the streets. And he explains that there's a guy that touched him in the head, and his name was Dion El Rabbi. And he says that I was signing autographs for everybody, and a man from the group gave me a piece of paper, and he said, Dion L. Rabbi loves you. And I got a weird feeling from this man. He made a connection with my temple, with my mind. I had a bad feeling about him, and then suddenly he just walked away. So I chased him down, and we began walking together. And he started asking me all these weird questions like, do you remember this? Do you remember that? He repeated this several times, and I was looking at him thinking, what are you talking about? I don't remember any of this. I told him, you just told me mentally that you were God, that you were the Lord. I'm going to kick it with you. So we walked together, and I looked at him with tears in my eyes, and I asked him, what do you want from me? He could not answer me, but he said these words that cling to my temple, so I knew that he was a liar and not a man of Jesus. He told me that he should have never chosen me, but I've known since the beginning that I chose this body. I chose it myself, so I was angry. And I said, you didn't choose me. I chose this body. This body is mine. Mine. My father Jesus was carrying me during the entire time and not him. He was determined to mentally stalk me, and after that first day, I knew he was Satan, and I couldn't get him out of my mind. He was trying to convince me that he was my father. So that's deep stuff, right? Don't you want to... This was super duper deep, and that was the encounter that kind of set Bizzy off in a bad way. On the next page, it says, Satan came to me in the form of this man, Dion L. Rabbi. It was pure hell, and I was going through it by my damn self. So that's the power of this book. Like I said, I don't... Unless people don't have a spiritual mind, I guess if you don't understand the supernatural and the spiritual, this book may throw you off. But why would you be a Bizzy Bone fan if those weren't your things? Like, I couldn't imagine a Bizzy Bone fan not being spiritually or religiously connected to the paranormal factors of our existence. I mean, to me, that's Bizzy Bone's draw. He is the paranormal leader of the group. And so, yeah, so a new Bizzy is born. So he finally gets rescued, and or he concludes his pilgrimage. Tupac and God, and we know the profound influence Tupac had on Bizzy. Bizzy in Love, he explains some of that stuff, and we got Children of Jesus, all of his kids, because he couldn't be there for all of his kids, but he feels they're the children of Jesus, and they're special. And then what I didn't know is that he really likes cooking, which makes sense. I was watching a Jam TV episode, and I saw him cooking with his wife, with Jay Kaz. And at least now I know that Bizzy's really into the whole cooking thing. Slavery. And then High Times and Harmony. He talks about that he's done drugs, but he doesn't recommend doing them. Hip Hop Beefs. The End of the World. This book came out before 2012, before December 21st, 2012. So he kind of talks about that there, and he hoped that we make it through. And we did, Bizzy. We made it through. The Root of All Evil. Yeah, I don't remember what he was talking about there. I think he was... We got The Reunion. That's talking about Unify. Inside a Busy Mind. Bizzy's mom. Okay, now here's an interesting twist to the book. So at this point, this is a chapter by his mother explaining, her side of the story, which is cool. And then we got Hope McCain Jarman, aka Hopi, Bizzy Bone's big sister, and she's got her own part of it. And it's kind of neat hearing other people's perspectives. It's also nice to hear, other people speak of Bizzy Bone. And then we also have Q Loco, and he talks about his dedication and loyalty to Bizzy Bone. And I think he was the one that they called because he kept Bizzy Bone when he was on his wandering journey. He kept asking for Q Loco, and Q Loco mentioned how when he found him, Bizzy was in really bad shape. And then we got the Nitty Gritty, the Frank Nitti chapter. And, Frank, if you haven't heard the Frank Nitti interview, Frank has a lot of good stories. And he told me even more really neat, interesting stories when we were out there in California. So Nitty had a big part in the rehabilitation of Bizzy. And then that's kind of like the end of the story, the end of the book. There's a freestyle rap for his fans. And then here's something interesting as well. This is his discography. And you'll see that the albums skip, I mean, obviously, so it skips Strength and Loyalty. So you have, it goes from Thug World Order and then Unify. So there's no Strength and Loyalty or Thug Stories or Bone for Life in between, which makes sense. So this is the discography from Bizzy Bone's perspective. It also has soundtracks, music appearances, special television appearances, and it's all from the Bizzy Bone perspective, not the Bone Thugs and Harmony. And then the collabos, it's like, yeah, there's just too many to list. And there's some special thanks. Then the contributors, the photographers, the writers, photography credits, and then a final picture of Bizzy. So I just wanted to give you an overview of this book because I think you guys were interested, the ones that didn't know that this existed or those that don't own it. And it, you know, if you didn't go out and buy it as soon as you saw that video, you're probably like, it's probably killing you inside to know what's in this book. Like, what's this book about? And it's really about Bizzy. It's pretty thorough. And again, like I said, there was some people don't think it's a good book. I was captivated by it. Like I said, I read it in 2 sittings. I wanted to read the whole thing in 1 sitting, but I had to go to sleep. And it tells the story. And I learned new things in this book, as you saw from the video. With sailing, it opened that up. Learning that Bizzy remembers choosing his life in another dimension. I made a video on my own channel, the Jonathan Lippy channel, about that when I read this in the book. And just in case you never saw that video, when I read Bizzy Bone's special thank yous in New Waves, see, I remember choosing my life. So when I read his thank yous, I was like, I think this guy remembers choosing his life. There's like a thing that you know with people. And then when I met him in person and I asked him about the thank yous, his answer to me indicated as well, without saying, that he did remember choosing. And then the first page of this book and the first page of the next chapter in the book, he talks about choosing his life from, like, God offers him a couple of lives and he chooses the one that he has now. And you could see through Bizzy Bone's life, he is the example of what I've always said, is that what I was told when I chose is, they said that you will be faced with obstacles and things that will shape your behavior in order to make you the man that you need to be, to bring forth the concept that you're to bring. So this was a very special book for me. You know, one of my 2 favorite rappers had a very similar origin story to me, so I felt super connected to the story. I was hanging on his every word, and this was good. If anybody tells you this is not a good book, I don't know why. I don't know what else they expected from this. He tells the story of the kidnapping, of his, you know, all the stuff you heard on Heaven's Movie, and then all the stuff of his wandering, because I know that, like I said, that's what everybody wonders about. It's not, he doesn't give you every detail, because a lot of it's, you know, a lot of it shouldn't be told, and then a lot of it was blacked out from his mind anyway. But at least he touches upon it and gives that to you. And again, this is from 2012, so this is right before that. To me, the real reemergence of Bone was around 2013 when they dropped Everything 100. This is that in-between phase around Unify and whatnot. So, inside a Bizzy Mind, Bizzy by choice, Bone by blood. Inside a Bizzy Mind, the official authorized autobiography of Bizzy Bone of Bone Thugs and Harmony. Frank Nitti had a hand in this. He talks about it in that interview. Check out that interview. And there will be a link in the description to buy this book from Amazon. And while we're on the subject of books and reading, I just want to bring this to your attention. There is this is about the length of a book. It's called Machetes Dipped in Rum, The Oral History of Bone Thugs and Harmony. Now, I've read this front to back. It took me longer to read this than the Bizzy Bone book. So I would think that if this was printed into a book, that it would be longer in length than, it took me like 4 nights to read it. Let's see how many pages if we try to print it. 259 sheets of paper. Bizzy Bone's book was 180 pages with pictures. Now, there's pictures in this too, and there's big quotes, but 259 pages. So I was right. This is a super long book. It goes through from the beginning to the end, and there's even some... There's a lot. I learned a lot from this, and I even learned of some songs, like collabo songs that I never heard about. Also, it has a lot of the numbers that, like number figures, if they went number one or not, if they went platinum or not. And Bone had a lot of number one singles, and it just dawns on you how many hits that they had. So it would take me a long time to scroll through all this. I'll put a link to in the description below if you're into reading. If you're into Bone and you haven't read this, Machetes Dipped in Rum, The Oral History of Bone Thugs-n-Harmony, and no matter how much you think you know, there's bound to be something in these 250-something pages. And Matteo Urella, what a writer. This is quite a piece of work. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And this will be a future giveaway for the month or whatever, for when we reach a goal. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And drop your comments. If you have this book, let us know what you think about this book. And I'll see you in the next one.